So now I am moving to hearing of the public on non-agenda items. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to come up and talk to the board on agenda items? If you would like to come to the podium, introduce yourself, tell us where you live, and tell us whatever you would like to tell us.
Sure. Hi, my name is Laura Shuler. I'm a resident of Rye. I currently lease a home at 18 Halstead Place while my family home at 20 Vale Place is under construction. So I own property, have lived here 14 years with my husband, raised 4 children here. They've attended Midland Elementary School, Rye Middle School, and Rye High School. And we've been very supportive of the schools over the 14 years we've been here. Our kids have done very well. We've never lodged a complaint against the school. So you can imagine my surprise when on January 10th, with no forewarning, I received a registered letter at my residence in Rye from a Kathleen Ryan, who identified herself as the Assistant Superintendent for Business of the Rye City School District. In it, I was informed that my daughter, who is currently a senior at Rye High School, would be expelled from the school in 8 days hence. This was based on, quote, facts that she had derived through the district placing my daughter under surveillance and determining that she predominantly lives at another address in Connecticut and is therefore not legally entitled to attend the public schools in Rye. The letter went on to say that I had a right to an informal meeting with Ms. Ryan to understand the factual basis for her decision to expel my daughter, where I could provide documentary evidence to try and disprove her facts. In other words, my daughter was guilty, I was guilty, and it was now up to us to prove our innocence. Needless to say, I was shocked and upset. For the record, I am a resident and taxpayer of Rye. My daughter lives with me and my husband. She spends 3 nights a week at the home of her biological father, with whom I share joint custody. Given those facts, I couldn't imagine how or why my daughter's right to attend Rye High School would be called into question, or why the district would resort to covert spying on her, rather than contacting me directly to discuss a concern. I contacted Ms. Ryan and Dr. Alvarez for an explanation. I wanted to know why my daughter had been targeted, what type of surveillance had been used, and what they were prepared to do to correct the situation given the true facts. In a phone call and follow-up letter, Ms. Ryan told me that the eligibility requirement for a student to attend Rye City schools is not whether he or she predominantly lives in Rye with a tax-paying parent, but is instead determined by where he or she spends the majority of school nights. When I said I had never heard of such a rule, Ms. Ryan said it was a regulation set forth by the Commissioner of Education. I contacted the Commissioner's office. They told me that there is no such requirement at the state level, and that determination of student residency is left to the Board of Education of each district. I have scoured the Rye City School District's resident student admissions policy and its application for resident students and have been unable to find a single mention of school night sleeping arrangements as a requirement for establishing residency. I guess I made a persuasive enough argument in my phone call with Ms. Ryan to dissuade her from moving forward with the expulsion. I received a letter from her on January 15th in which she said that my daughter would be allowed to continue to attend Rye High School if she spends the majority of school nights sleeping at my home for the remainder of the school year. While I found this to be overreaching and invasive, at least I didn't have to submit to a home inspection, something Ms. Ryan said I might be asked to do to prove my daughter lives with me. In her letter of reprieve, there was no mention of the details of the surveillance that was used on my daughter, and there was certainly no apology for the way the district had conducted itself in this matter. And so I am here today to ask the school board for some clarity. As a tax-paying member of this community, a homeowner, and a parent, I think it is fair and reasonable to know the answer to the following questions. Are you aware of, and do you condone the district's use of covert, off-campus surveillance of students? If so, what are the conditions under which surveillance of a student is considered warranted? Who is allowed to authorize it? How is it being conducted? And how does a parent or student who's had this happen to them gain access to the records? I do know that under the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, I have the right to inspect these records within 45 days of having made the request to see them. As I requested this in writing on January 10th, the district has 45 days or until February 24th to provide them to me. 2, is a child's right to attend Rye City schools predicated on the number of school nights a student sleeps at the home of a parent in the district, rather than the fact that their parent is a tax-paying custodial resident? If so, where is this written down? What is the purpose of this requirement, other than the targeting and removal of children of divorced parents from the school system? In our phone call, Ms. Ryan did say that my daughter was one of a group of students under investigation. I'd like to know if they are all children of divorce. And number 3, do you believe that the concept of due process and the Bill of Rights should govern the district's interactions with students and their parents? If so, how can covert surveillance, false accusations, and unilateral judgment be justified in a blue ribbon school district where our children are being taught the value of our democratic rights to privacy and due process? I'd like to know the answers to these questions, and I know a lot of other parents would too. But perhaps the person who most deserves answers is my daughter. She's done nothing wrong, and yet the school district that she has called her home since she entered it in the 1st grade targeted her, spied on her, and was very ready and willing to throw her out. Ironically, on January 9th, the day before I received the letter from Ms. Ryan telling me of the surveillance, of her facts, and her decision to expel, my daughter attended an anti-bullying program put on by the Rye High School administration. In it, they talked about their intolerance of the behaviors that define bullying, the intimidation of others through an imbalance of power that is characterized by harassment and by threats. And ironically, that's exactly what arrived in a letter from the Rye City School District the very next day. Thank you.
And so all I want to say is, number one, we're precluded from having a discussion about individual students publicly. But I will tell you that it has been the board's practice, our practice in the district, to ensure that students who attend our schools live in the Rye City School District. And it has been my understanding, and we'll try to find you the law, the regulation, the commissioner's decision, whatever it is, that speaks to the fact that a child must be domiciled in this town, in the town in which he or she attends school.
I understand that.
And so there was reason to believe that perhaps that was not the case. And I think once you did provide evidence, as you suggest, the matter was clarified. We can speak to the other issues. I think offline is we can't
I'd like
have
to
this
know
discussion publicly.
what surveillance tactics the district is using to monitor students off campus. Could you please provide me with that information?
Kathy,
What types of surveillance are you doing on our students?
So I think what we should do about the personal situation is we should arrange for an appointment to talk about your personal
I'm really not
situation.
interested in talking to the
understand
school
that-
at this
I
point about
understand-
my child. I have documentation which I will share with all of you of what I was sent by the school. I'd like clarification. I think the community is owed an explanation of what kind of surveillance you're doing of our children, number one. Number two, why I'm being told that the standard for my family in terms of my daughters being able to go to school here is written down nowhere in any location in the school, on the school district website, and yet I'm being held to that standard, being told when my daughter must sleep in my home. And then I'd like an explanation why that kind of behavior is allowed in the school system, because this is not the behavior that we are teaching our children. It's not the standard. It's not what you just all talked about in terms of creating, accountability to the community and parents. So I'm going to give you this. I'll step down now. I appreciate you listening to me, and I respect and appreciate all of your time and attention. Thank you.
I know. Did anybody else from the public like to come up and talk about something that's non-agenda item?
Laura?
Yes.
This is certainly news to me, and I'm guessing to other board members.
I understand.
So I just want to make it clear to the parent that this is the first time I think any of us have heard about this. So we need a little bit of time to.
Right. I don't think that the board can respond at this moment.
No, but I
So
want
we
the
need to,
parent
we need to
understand that.
we need to then, we need to then discuss this, and then respond.
Thank
I
you.
agree with that. Can I have